Good evening, friends, and welcome to Mirror Valley.
Coming up on tonight's episode.
I ended up at the fortune teller's tent completely by chance. At least that's what I keep trying to tell myself.
Loneliness. It is an affliction suffered by many. But in this modern world, those who are affected find it increasingly difficult to break free, to find the safety and companionship that we all desire. Tonight, we find out what happens when one man's need for connection leads him to contemplate some potentially drastic measures. The time is at hand once more. Turn off the lights, lock your doors, and join me as we take a look at another twisted reflection.
The fortune teller. I ended up at the fortune teller's tent completely by chance. At least that's what I keep trying to tell myself. I'd met a woman at the park the week before. She just came right up to me and started a conversation. Something that rarely, well, I'll be honest, never happens to me. But for some reason, this woman zeroed in on me right away. We talked for a bit, and then she mentioned that the carnival was in town, and she didn't have anyone to go with. I told her I'd love to go with her, and the date was set. We made plans for Friday night. She suggested we meet at exactly 7 p.m. in front of the old fortune teller's tent at the back of the carnival grounds. I agreed, and spent the rest of the week giddy with anticipation. I arrived almost 15 minutes early, and found the fortune teller's tent with no problem. I stood outside, watching the carnival goers, the friends, the couples, the families enjoying their evenings, screaming in pleasure on the rides, sharing cotton candy, playing carnival games and winning prizes for one another. I thought of the woman from the park, imagined us together, playing games, sharing food, riding the Ferris wheel in each other's arms. These pleasant fantasies kept me occupied until 7 o'clock came around, and then passed. She hadn't given me her number, and as the minutes ticked away, the realization dawned on me that perhaps this too-good-to-be-true occurrence was exactly that. Too good to be true. By the time the clock hit 7:20, I had no choice but to accept it. She wasn't coming. I was a fool to ever believe a woman like her could be interested in a guy like me. I was just about to leave when I heard a woman's voice call out, "Sir?" I turned to find the fortune teller staring directly at me. She asked me if I wanted a reading. I politely refused and turned to leave, but she insisted. "There's something weighing on you," she said. "I can feel it. Don't you want a better life?" I knew she was manipulating me, but what the hell, I thought. I had nothing better to do with the evening anyway. Inside, she gazed into her crystal ball for what seemed like an eternity, before looking back up at me with a knowing grin. "You've been unlucky in love," she told me. "I can change that, if you really want it." I was, of course, skeptical, but I replied that of course I wanted it to change. She handed me a card. "It's very simple," she said. "Take this card home with you and contemplate your desire to be successful in love, to attract any woman you desire. If you decide you want this for yourself, all you have to do is burn this card to ashes." I reached down to take the card, but she stopped me, locking her eyes with mine. "Listen carefully. If you burn this card, someone you've never met, never even laid eyes on, will drop stone dead. Bring the ashes of the card back to me, and you will get everything your heart desires. This is a promise. as sure as the sun rises and falls. I left with the card in my pocket and the woman's words echoing in my mind. Burn the card. Someone I've never laid eyes on will die, and I'll have everything I desire. Of course, it was all nonsense. It had to be. Still, I couldn't help but wonder. What if?
We will return to our story in just a moment. But first,
Enjoying the show? Please help us out and like this video and subscribe to the Mirror Valley YouTube channel.
and now, the conclusion of tonight's story.
I left with the card in my pocket and the woman's words echoing in my mind. Burn the card. Someone I've never laid eyes on will die, and I'll have everything I desire. Of course, it was all nonsense. It had to be. Still, I couldn't help but wonder. What if? In the coming days and weeks, the card's presence haunted my every waking moment. No matter where I was or what I was doing, like a tongue playing at a sore tooth, my mind kept returning to the card. I couldn't burn it. I wouldn't dare be responsible for the death of another person, even if it was someone I'd never laid eyes on. But what was I thinking? What the fortune teller had said couldn't possibly be true. Could it? I did my best to put it out of my mind, but I couldn't let it go. Finally, I decided to throw the card away so I could simply forget about the whole strange affair. I awoke the next morning to find the card inexplicably sitting on my kitchen table. Once again, I attempted to forget it, until finally, one night, as I sat at home alone, as always, watching all the pretty, happy people on TV while I sat and drank in solitude, my loneliness became unbearable. In a fit of desperation, I dug out the card, and before I could convince myself otherwise, I set it on fire. The following night, I brought the ashes to the fortune teller. She welcomed me in with a knowing smile. She took the ashes from me and blew them into the air, watching intently as they drifted away on the wind. "What now?" I asked her. "It's done," she replied. "Your troubles with love and romance are over." I hesitated, but finally asked, "And what about the other person? Did they—" "Oh yes," she said. "Someone you've never laid eyes on died the moment you set fire to the card." I immediately felt a twinge of guilt. She told me I could go home then, that nothing more was required but to simply live my life, that the changes I desired would take place effortlessly. Then, as I was about to leave, she produced another card, just like the one she'd given me, and placed it on the table. I froze in place. "What are you going to do with that?" I asked. She smiled, her lips curling into a knowing grin, and replied, "I'll give it to the next person who comes in, desperate to make a change. And rest assured, whoever I give it to, it will be someone you've never laid eyes on."
And so our time together comes to an end once more. Our paths will cross again soon. Until then, keep your eyes open, your mind sharp, and remember, what you see in the mirror is not always what it appears to be. Until next time, good night, friends.